What's up, everyone, and welcome to Clear Talk. So we have breaking news. Happened apparently a couple hours ago. Israel launched attacks on Iran. We've been in waiting for this for a few weeks now, since the last retaliatory strikes from Iran on Israel on military uh, sites in Israel where they had shot like 180 ballistic uh, uh, hypersonic or whatever missiles. Um, and Israel has been, and big talks about how they were going to continue hit back and hit back hard. The first attack talk was about hitting uh, nuclear sites and oil sites and stuff like that, fuel sites, and you had the U.S. in talks with them, trying to convince them, not to do that, to downscale that and do more just military sites or something. And there's bunches of military sites all over Iran. That going to the scale of a nuclear site or oil site would just blow things completely out of proportion. You would basically be calling for an all out war then. Uh, and we even had a few days ago or so reports of a letter or so that got out, or some type of report that was released by Iran that they had somehow gotten um, from the U.S. where there was so-called like a report on how uh, uh, Israel was going to respond, like in the some top secret documents or whatever, something about how they were going to respond, and Israel basically was saying that they come out against that, saying that they were going to delay the response now because of that coming out. Although the report was that only thing that it said was that they were going to have it was going to be a air a ballistic strike, no time, no date, no nothing like that. It was just a blank, just which that was kind of an obvious thing, so it didn't really make sense to me why Israel would act like they needed to make some major adjustment or push back the attacks or something like that. But that was just like uh, either yesterday or the day before, and then all of a sudden now we have this evening, um, Israel launching the attacks. I don't think right now there's any reports on like how many missiles it was. But we do have what I have is a uh, report from Al Jazeera English, that I'm gonna play. They are talk about the strike. They are talking with somebody that's actually on the ground in Tehran, the capital of Iran, uh, and he goes over what was heard by him personally, what he has heard in reports, and then and then also what uh, at this point, since what Iran has done as far as just preparing for anything further or whatever. Anyways, it's a good report, and I know that you'll hear a lot of stuff, from Israel, or somebody like that, or that's within that like sphere, that will probably badmouth Al Jazeera. Talk about how they have people in Hamas and all that kind of stuff. Um, they are um, located in uh, Qatar. They are. Uh, I have been following them along with a lot of other sources all throughout this entire conflict, uh, and I went to it with skepticism. This was early on, October, whatever, when all the main stuff started happening after October 7th, and everything I've heard from them for the most part has been quite um basically quite fair. They have a very open talk about the conflicts that are going on, the history of all of it. They have a lot of background stuff from the Palestinian side and Israel side, but a lot of times, I mean, granted, they do lean more in favor, against Israel, no doubt. But at the same time, they give nuance to everything. And I think it's good to hear, especially since they're located over there. They actually have people that are in that area that can talk about it, rather than even hearing it from one of our local media sources that all they're getting is just some reports or from who knows what. So I just think it's a good idea to hear from someone actually on the ground there, where we don't necessarily have somebody on the ground there. So, flip it over here. All right, and here we go.
Thoughts now. Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari has just spoken in the last few minutes. Let's listen to what he had to say.
In response to months of continuous attacks from the regime in Iran against the State of Israel, right now, the Israel Defense Forces is conducting precise strikes on military targets in Iran. The regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7th on 7 fronts, including direct attacks from Iranian soil. Like every other sovereign country in the world, the State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are fully mobilized. We will do whatever necessary to defend the State of Israel and the people of Israel.
Well, that was from the Israeli military spokesman, Daniel Hagari. But let's go back to Rasul Sardar, our correspondent who's live for us in Tehran. Rasul, can you talk us through whether there's been any updates since we just last spoke? Obviously, this is a moving story, a very significant one, especially now that Israel...
The one thing that I took from, is it Hagari, whatever, spokesperson for Israel, is that he clearly is, completely leaving out everything that Israel has done at this moment. They're talking about, all these attacks they've gotten from Iran and everything else, but he's not stating what they have done also. The nuance of what has been, why Iran actually, all the 2 Iran strikes that they have done on Israel have been retaliatory strikes. They didn't start it. They didn't shoot first. Israel did. So this was, that's something nuanced to keep in mind. All right, go for it.
Has confirmed that it is carrying out those strikes on Iran.
Indeed, as of now, in the capital, we are not hearing any sounds of the explosions. However, shortly before, we have heard at least 3 explosions, most of them taking place in the western part of the capital. And then there are some reports that the explosions were heard in the city of Kashan and also in the city of Mashhad. So these cities, they're having some nuclear facilities and also the military facilities as well. But what we understand so far, that there has not been any explosion in the nuclear facilities, oil and gas reserves. Rather, some of the military targets have came under the Israeli attack. But we do not know about the state of the casualties, whether some soldiers have been killed or they're injured or not. However, there have been the reports of the explosion from these 3 cities. Now we are in Tehran, and we have also heard at least 3 explosions, but there are some reports that there were 3 more explosions in Tehran. So in total, we are talking about 6 explosions. However, here we are understanding from the Israeli spokesperson, the military spokesperson, that they have targeted the military facilities. They have targeted the military bases rather than going to the oil and nuclear gases or the nuclear facility, oil and gas facilities and the nuclear facilities. So that is telling us something, because we have heard of that again and again. Iranians were quite clear that their response is going to be according to the Israeli attack. So that means if Israel attacks to our military bases, we are going to target Israeli military bases. This was the adopted policy, tit for tat. And if Israel attacks the oil and gas reserves or the nuclear facilities, then our response also is going to be hitting Israeli oil and gas reserves.
I know the one thing that the U.S. was hoping for, and I think we still, or I personally are hoping for, is that because they would be, that if they do turn out to solely be military installations, that Iran and Iran being way more mature about this whole situation so far, in my opinion, they very well could decide to just not attack, like do no further, like to just end it there and do no more retaliatory attacks. The worrisomeness there was that if Israel attacked, especially them, not really being like a whole, like wholly confident in saying that they were only going to do military, that they weren't going to do nuclear sites or anything. There was a fear there that they would do it. Now, what he continues to say here and brings up a good point is that what they're waiting to see is that if this was just one round, a one-time strike, or if this was if this is going to wind up being a phased thing, which Israel is known to do, where they do different phases of attacks. And then which is something that I was concerned about, was that they would hit military attack things and then turn around and then hit, whatever else they wanted to, just so they could state, hey, we did what you asked, but then we decided, well, we're going to do something else too. So that's, what they're still waiting, I think, to see, is whether or not there will be another phase of strikes and where those strikes would be. But yeah, if this is a one-time thing though, I could see where Iran liable to be like, you know what, cool, all right, we're good, let's chill now. Now, will that actually chill Israel? I who knows, because they're bound. Netanyahu and his coalition seem hell bent on escalating stuff with Iran. But I'm going to continue and let him talk. Continue his yeah, that.
And their nuclear facilities. But Americans have been putting a tremendous pressure on Israelis not to target these strategic facilities that could easily lead to an all-out, a full-scale war across the region. It seems that as of now, what we can see, that Israeli response to Iran's attack on October 1st is quite a measured one, well calculated one, and it seems that it is limited with the military targets, not going beyond that, because Tehran itself is holding some of the nuclear facilities, and as of now, when we can see, we're just scanning, we haven't heard that kind of explosions, and the reports that we are receiving, the nuclear facilities are operating normally so far. But we have heard at least 3 explosions in the capital, and there are some other explosions that we are receiving. The nuclear facilities are operating normally so far. But
seeing right here, it says Syrian state media air defenses confront hostile targets over capital Damascus. That's where Israel attacked the first time. Reason why Iran did their first, attack that was like well strategized and had everybody in cahoots with it, and they knew exactly when it was coming, exactly where it was going, so they could shoot them all down. It was a whole just sort of front. It wasn't even a real attack, not like October the 1st was. But anyways, back in April. Anyways, I was just don't know what this will come about, but it's probably minor compared to this.
we have heard at least 3 explosions in the capital, and there are some other explosions, 3 explosions that are at this moment unconfirmed. As I said, it seems that Israelis have attacked the military targets, but we do not know what is the scale of that exactly at this moment, and whether now it was a one-hit operation and that is over, or whether the second or third, the coming waves are going to come or now. Now, we do not know whether Israelis have concluded their attacks or they have just initiated that. So in the coming hours, we are going to have a clear sense and picture of that. However, in Iran, Iranians are saying that their air defense systems across the country are on the highest alert, and they're saying that it's a multi-layer air defense system. So we are talking about the protection particularly being enhanced across and around these strategic facilities, the oil and gas reserves, the strategic depots that are preserved for the war times, and the nuclear facilities. So they have been protected by Russian S-300 and S-400s, then Khordad third systems, and also they are talking about the Iranian-made Bavar 373 air defense system, which are equivalent to the Russian-made S-300s. And on the top of that, Iranians are saying that several dozens and dozens of the aircrafts are now scanning the Iranian airspace, and now the Iranian army is at the highest level of the readiness. If the scale of the Israeli attacks is quite big and huge, then Iranians are saying that they are going to respond to these with the same magnitude.
Thoughts now. Israeli military spokesman Daniel Hagari.
Now the Iranian army is at the if the scale of the Israeli attacks is quite big and huge, then Iranians are saying that they are going to respond to these with the same magnitude.
So basically, what he's saying is that because he's doing pretty good with his English, but he has repeated himself a few times, trying to clear himself up to make himself a little bit more understandable. But basically, they've got air defense systems. They've increased those protections around their nuclear facilities, around the oil facilities, to protect them from any possible other phase. And then they've also got dozens of air flights circling and observing the airspace of Iran. I would assume probably more over on this western side, since Israel is to the west of Iran. So they're probably circulating this whole entire area, airspace area here, for anything else coming or whatnot. And if it, and then potentially, if it is big enough, if it's something even more massive than what they just did, they, would have the ability to, either engage with them, for one, maybe to stop or, keep it from doing anything, or also in retaliation, they could do an immediate retaliation. And as somebody pointed out in the comments I read on this a little bit ago, is that Iran has the capability to immediately respond instead of waiting out, you know, like Israel did for a couple of weeks, trying to negotiate with America and or play the whole what can we do or what will we do, and being strategic. Iran's probably already thought of all this through. They've had this whole time also to think about it, and so they could potentially do an immediate retaliation if they wanted to. And like I said, if this is it, I'm pretty sure, and I almost feel like they won't do anything. But if it appears, or if it actually does happen, where Israel does another phase and they potentially do hit a nuclear site or whatever, Iran could choose to immediately retaliate. Which I'm not sure that Israel is ready for. But I'm severely hoping that's not the case. Oh, I guess that was
In
it.
response,
Didn't click. That didn't make any sense. It really
I guess that was it. So yeah, if this comes, like I said, in lieu of everything, and I guess since I am talking about this whole situation, I can continue in what I was going to do already for a video. But this comes in lieu of all the other stuff that has happened, this week. With, we just had, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, or you've had, continued attacks daily, continuing on in Gaza. But you had a major attack in the north on the Jabalia refugee camp, where they hit, I think it's somewhere around 11 or 15 or something like that, buildings. And reported initial reports. I don't know what has come out of that, but I know the initial reports were reporting over 100 killed. I mean, that is like major. And this is in the north, where they've been doing the whole trying to forcibly make people relocate out. And there's been, and I'll show you video where they have lines and lines and lines of just people trying to go, but you have some that who decided not to, for probably multiple reasons. Some because of that they just don't feel comfortable leaving, that they maybe they've been displaced already a few times or whatever, and they've made their way back, or just they just don't want to leave. It's their home. They don't want to leave. Whatever. And also, you have had a blockade on the north now for 20 days, or 21 or 22 by now, where there's nothing getting in the north. No food, water, fuel, electricity. Nothing's getting through in the north. It's a full blockade on humanitarian aid, because that's Israel. Because Israel's been they are wanting to make Hamas suffer, and feed them out and hunger, to to get rid of them in the north. But what you have is you have the actual people also that are still there, been under blockade and are starving, and so there's some of these people are staying just simply because of that. They're hungry, they're weak, or whatever, and just don't feel like making that they can actually even make that move. Miles and miles that they would have to travel on foot because you can't drive anywhere. There's no vehicles. You can't. Everything's there's too much destruction to be able to drive, even if you could, or even if they could. So they would be doing this on foot. And Israel considers anybody who does not move, does not go, they consider them a part of Hamas, and if they die, they die. As if they cared in the first place. I mean, they're even attacking and shooting people that are going to the so-called safety areas. I mean, and this is something that's been happening this whole time. Every time they tell them to move somewhere, when people do make their move on the trail to where they're going, they're attacked on those roads, whether it's by bombings or by sniper shots or whatever. And then, of course, once they get to the safe places, eventually you hear about the safe places, the tents, cities, and everything getting bombed or whatever. I mean, it's just an ongoing thing that they've been doing this whole entire time. And people just act like it's no big deal. We just continue to let it happen. But first off, you have I'm not even going to worry with him. I was going to go over the whole Ben Shapiro thing where he was talking to a student at this convention and what he's but I don't even feel like it's worth it. He's a moron and he's doing nothing but lying. Here is this is also from Al Jazeera, but here's a video.
Israel is attacking journalists again. This time, the military issued a statement accusing 6 Al Jazeera journalists of being members of the armed wings of Palestinian groups, Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Allegations Al Jazeera Media Network says are baseless and dangerous. In a statement, the network rejects the use of fabricated evidence, saying it views these accusations as a blatant attempt to silence the few remaining journalists in the region and obscure the harsh realities of the war from audiences worldwide. The men Israel accuses of being operatives are in fact Palestinian journalists, working in one of the most hostile reporting environments in the world. On the ground in Gaza, living through the atrocities they cover every day, trapped and unable to leave, just like every other Palestinian there. Israel published documents it says prove, quote, the integration of Hamas terrorists within Al Jazeera.
And every terror has his own shift.
But this is the same Israeli military that mistook a wall calendar in a hospital it destroyed for a list of names of Palestinian fighters. They were, in fact, days of the week. The Committee to Protect Journalists has also pointed out that Israel has made similar claims before.
Israel has repeatedly made similar unproven claims without producing credible evidence. After killing Al Jazeera correspondent Ismail Al-Ghul in July, Israel previously produced a similar document which contained contradictory information, showing that Al-Ghul, born in 1997, received a Hamas military ranking in 2007 when he would have been 10 years old.
The latest accusations come weeks after a report by Al Jazeera's investigative unit that reveal a raft of potential war crimes committed by Israeli soldiers, using their own social media posts as evidence. Israel has...
That is something that has been happening. There's countless videos. The Israeli military is over Instagram, over TikTok, over all these damn social media outlets have been just parading and celebrating all of these different videos where they are doing all these insane things. All the kind of shit that you hear them, saying that Hamas does and the Palestinians do and all this kind of stuff. They are the ones actually doing it. And it is just appalling at some of the stuff that they have been doing. But they've and it's already been a hit on Israel quite a few times now in this throughout this whole year, where they've been pushed to get the Israeli IDF members and stuff off of their phones and to stop recording the stuff, but they're still doing it, and they're doing it with impunity, like they don't care, just flagrantly posing with these types of things, where they're demolishing buildings, whether it's whatever it is, a school or whatever the case, and to just casually, like this, casually smoking a cigarette and, it's just or whatever the case, like going through people's, apartment buildings and destroying them and, doing whatever with their clothing and all this kind of, it's just insane stuff, war crimes, and it's just, they don't care.
Israel has severely restricted access to Gaza for international media outlets to report independently. And in northern Gaza, under siege for...
That's right. You've had Israel this whole time has been preventing any news crews and stuff from getting into Gaza. So the only reports that have been coming out of Gaza have been from independent journalists that are inside Gaza and are reporting to places like Al Jazeera. Now, Al Jazeera has their own journalists inside Gaza as well that they get the majority of their stuff from, but there's also independent ones that also have been sharing information and stuff with media places like Al Jazeera and some others. But this is the reason why Israel has been attacking so many journalists as well. You've had the largest amount of journalists killed in any conflict in history. Over 130 journalists within over a year have been killed in Gaza. And it's because they just don't want people to know what's going on in Gaza. That's the reason why they've been trying so much to shut down Al Jazeera, because Al Jazeera is the only one majorly reporting what's going on there, like from the ground. Just like recently, that's been the past week, they tried to make this big deal about in Hezbollah about a hospital that supposedly had all kinds of ammunitions and money, gold and stuff, up underneath that hospital, in like a bunker like thing under the hospital, and they were precluding their advance to bomb that hospital. Like, I guess they just said it, that they have evidence of it, and then what's to come next is that they were going to bomb that hospital, and you had media sources that can actually get into Lebanon, because Israel can't control that in Lebanon, like the BBC, Sky News, stuff like that actually were able to get in there, and the hospital, coordinators and whatnot allowed them all down into the lower levels of the hospital, showed them through the different floors, or there's like 2 sub-levels, I think, or so of the hospital, allowed them to walk around themselves, and open up doors, open up cupboards, open up all kinds of areas, and there was nothing like that up underneath the hospital. There was no indication of any kind of bunker or anything up underneath there. With any kind of gold, money, weapons, it was just hospital stuff, or either like garbage and things that were from what operations or whatnot that they could, things that disposals and whatnot down there. It was nothing. It was all hospital related. There was nothing down there like that. And they were trying to desperately get that out as quickly as possible to prevent Israel from attacking that hospital. I mean, it's ridiculous. The same kind of thing that Israel has done in Gaza, but there was nobody to report it. There was nobody to go down there, and Israel bombed the hospitals instead. So you had you've had almost every hospital, pretty much every hospital attacked or destroyed, to some degree, or completely destroyed. There's only a few hospitals that are half functioning there. Even today, and so, that's the reason why they don't want media there, because they don't want it getting out. They don't want the reality getting out there is what's going on.
For nearly 3 weeks now, Al Jazeera is the only international news organization reporting on Israel's.
That's people. Did you realize this? These are people. That are either just hunkering in or whatever, or
for nearly 3 weeks now, Al Jazeera is the only international news organization reporting on Israel's campaign of forced mass expulsion.
Caravan of people that are being dispelled out of the north.
It's crucially important for journalists to be able to do their job everywhere, including in Gaza. We've seen over the past year a very large number of journalists, along with others such as medical professionals, humanitarian workers, and our own UNRWA staff, face violence and be killed in alarmingly high numbers.
Figures from the Gaza government media office show Israel has killed at least 177 reporters and media workers during its war. Al Jazeera says the latest claims against its journalists are part of a wider pattern of hostility. Over the past 2 years, Israeli forces have targeted and killed several Al Jazeera journalists in both Gaza and the occupied West Bank. They have stormed the bureaus in Israel and Palestine, ordering them to close. The worry now is these latest allegations will be used as a pretext for more violence. Al Jazeera says the international community must act, because journalism is not a crime, but killing journalists is.
All right, so that was reporting because they were come out trying to accuse like 6 journalists of being a part of Hamas and from Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera was clarifying that. Here is a video on the attack that I was talking about in Jabalia.
Al-Khadari joining us from Deir al-Balah. So as there's talk of possibly restarting mediation talks when it comes to Gaza, Hind, give us a sense of what the situation is like on the ground right now, and particularly in the north.
Well, in the north and in the south, let me give you the last update where the Israeli forces targeted a service club in Al-Maghazi refugee camp, where this service club was a shelter. At least 1 Palestinian was killed and 16 others were injured. But all of these injured are actually burned with severe burns, and there's no creams, no medicine to treat those wounds. And also there has been earlier another target in Nusayrat. 17 Palestinians were killed. Among them are children, and dozens of others are also injured, and they are also critically injured. And again, there's no medicine. Now, moving to the north, the situation in the north is actually horrifying. We're not only talking about Israeli airstrikes, but we're also talking about tanks, Israeli soldiers, squad captures, Israeli shelling, interrogations, separating families from one another, a 20-day siege, and also no water, no food, no medicine, no ambulances, people trapped under the rubble, no civil defense teams. On all aspects of life, the situation there is horrifying. During the past couple of weeks, the Israeli forces have been literally wiping off any source of life in the northern Gaza Strip, but also, despite everything I'm telling you right now, there are still thousands of Palestinians in Jabalia, in Beit Lahia, and also in Beit Hanun refusing to go anywhere else because they believe that nowhere is safe across of the Gaza Strip. Now, Palestinians are not only challenged by the ongoing military incursion in those areas, but also not having food for 20 days, not being able to feed your children is also a very big challenge, and we're trying to ask people, how are they coping 20 days without any food? And all of the UN missions and agencies to deliver food to those areas are actually being denied by the Israeli forces. Now, all of this comes as we're hearing testimonies from Palestinians that the Israeli forces are digging very big holes in the streets of northern Jabalia. They're putting people in, putting them in group, and also marking them with numbers and interrogating them and separating families from each other. Children, mothers are horrified by the scenes, and also it has been a very, very hard nights for those in Beit Lahia, Jabalia. They're saying that they do not stop hearing shelling and airstrikes. So it's escalating. Every single minute is harder and harder for those under the siege, and they also feel helpless and very abandoned because they have been calling out. They have been calling ICRC for protection and for food and water. They have been calling all the civil defense teams, but no one is listening to them, and no one is reaching those areas. Now, not only that, some people are only requesting food for their children, and this shows how hard the situation is. Last night, the Israeli forces arrested at least 5 civil defense teams and also forced those teams to leave the northern Gaza Strip. So even if you stay, but if you get injured or if you need help, you won't find anyone to help you. So you're either going to die because there's no civil defense teams, ambulances, or paramedics, because there's no water or food, and also because of the ongoing Israeli airstrikes and artillery shelling.
And thank you so much for that update from.
As you see, all that you're seeing over here, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that Gazans are dealing with on a daily basis. As much as you might not be seeing this, might not being exposed to this kind of stuff, but I have been seeing this over and over and over and over again for almost a year now. And it's heartbreaking. It's as much as you might think and feel Israel has their rights to defend themselves, okay, from being attacked or from aggression towards them. On that same flip of the coin, you must also accept or humor at least the idea that Gazans, Palestinians also have a right. They also have rights to defend themselves. They also have, they're humans. And that's the problem with Israel, is they have the government and to some degree a lot of the population as well have completely dehumanized Palestinians over decades of oppression. To the point that they are not even viewed as humans. They're like animals that can just be eradicated. And this is the type of stuff that they deal with. And I actually, I wasn't even being completely honest here. I say this stuff is what they are dealing with in the past year. Actually, this is the kind of stuff that they've dealt with on and off for decades. This didn't just start on October the 7th. October the 7th was a response, albeit a bad one, a horrible one, that included war crimes in itself, violent crimes in itself. But it was a response for the type of things that Israel has been doing to the Palestinians for decades. This didn't just start on October 7th. For those of you who might be viewing me for the first time in this, and you may not have ever come across this, maybe you didn't know this. This did not start on October 7th. I'm just going to let this one play.
ايش يا عم ايش مالك؟ من ايش تبكي؟
عشان من أعرف من أنا دم وتنزل كل يوم من دم.
وين رجلك مليانة دم؟ فيها دم يعني أنت تعبانة من المشي؟
بعرفش وين احنا رايحين.
يلا ربنا مساعد إن شاء الله. ربنا مساعد. ايش يا عم ايش مالك؟
This is heartbreaking. This is heartbreaking. If you are to the point where you feel like Palestinian children or any children in any kind of conflict over the entire world, whether we're talking about what is it in the Congo that's got a major issue going on as well, and several there's other conflicts, that can arguably be placed in the same thing as what's going on in Gaza. Just Gaza's just way more publicized because of where it is and who is involved in it, the Middle East. Anything where you have children involved that are being killed or seriously injured or displaced, forced to, relocate over and over again, move here and there, walk and situate. I mean, I know my kids, you can't, you could barely walk down the road for, a couple mile walk or something, and they're complaining about how much their legs hurt. You could just be trying to walk through Walmart, and their legs would be hurting at this age. You put them up in the buggy because their legs are hurting. They don't want to walk anymore. And yet these kids are having to walk miles and miles. They have to eat. There's many cases where they have to walk miles just to either go to the hospital or to try to go get bread or whatever, flour or something for the one meal, couple of bites that they may get, for that day, if they're lucky to get one every day. I mean, this is despicable. Israel should be ashamed of itself. I don't care if you think that there is a terrorist, that there's a terrorist group in this area and that is being supported by these people, or whatever the case, or that this little girl here could potentially become one of those people one day. The more there's a more likely case that because of what you were doing to these people, that she would actually become one, not because she just inherently is going to become one.
ليش هيك حامل أخوكي؟
Here is another little girl that this has been going super viral, but this girl, 5-year-old or 6 years old, carrying her 5-year-old sister. She carried her to the hospital to get a cast on her leg because her foot, I guess, got ran over by a car or something. And she's apparently now, in this video, on the way back to their camp. The hospital was a couple of kilometers away, or something. And this person had kind of watched her and pulled over, offered her a ride to continue to the, a ride back to the site, which they did give her, the two girls, but.
ليش هيك حامل أخوكي؟ ليش هيك حامل أخوكي؟
انت عصبني.
طيب وين مودياها؟
بدي اروح على عرشتنا.
وانت مش تعبانة وانت حملاها هيك؟
The girl had carried her little sister on her shoulders for more than 2 kilometers barefoot before she was hit by a car, or after she was hit by a car. Of course, now people are claiming, no, there's a little girl can't hold her for 2. It doesn't say that she, for one, it doesn't say that she repeatedly carried her like solid for 2 kilometers on her back. She could have carried her for 10, 15 feet, 20 feet, whatever, as far as she could carry her, maybe set her down, picked her up, carried her a little bit long. It's not, I mean, I don't know the situation, but it's, or to understand that these people are a different breed. This is something that they are used to, having to walk this much, having to, and doing it barefooted. Their feet are probably like rocks. Okay, this is as, down to earth as it gets. So I honestly, I wouldn't be completely surprised if she actually could carry her. If I'm being honest. These people are way tougher than most of us probably are, because of the shit that they have to deal with and have had to deal with most of their lives, if not their entire lives, in many cases.
تعبانة ولا لا؟
تعبان وساعد احملها او مش قادر.
وين رايحة انت هالقيت؟
انا رايحة منتزه.
في المنتزه البريج؟ طب تعال اخذك معايا. يلا اطلع بدي اخذها معايا. بتحبي اختك عشان حملاكي كانت؟ طلع علي. يلا مع السلامة.
Now, if you're asking yourself, okay, why is this little girl having to take her sister? Well, for starters, because the rest of her family has either died, or is missing. Her father has been missing apparently for either a couple weeks or a couple months. I can't remember what was stated. But as far as I know, the rest of her family was killed. They're orphaned at this point. So they're taking care of themselves or being helped by people, which we actually get here in this report.
We're joined by France 24's Veriga Bahel. Veriga, you're taking us back to one of our top stories.
Because there's been a lot of speculation or people, acting like this is all faked and everything. So this channel here, France 24, did some research.
This evening, looking specifically at a video that has been seen and shared around the world over the course of the week. A little girl from Gaza, displaced child, carrying her injured sister on her back. Tell us, what do we know about the video?
Yeah, Sharon, that's right. Today I want to deep dive on the video from the Gaza Strip that has been going viral around the world. The video showing a displaced Palestinian little girl from Gaza carrying her wounded sister on her shoulders, alone in the street whilst barefoot. Now, these two girls were found and filmed by a Palestinian journalist on the ground named Ala Hamouda, and when he posted that video initially on his Instagram just a few days ago, he said that he saw her walking for more than 2 kilometres. He just happened to see her by chance and felt sorry for her walking barefoot in the sun. Therefore, he helped her get to her displacement site. So, as always, pictures do speak louder than words, so let's let the images speak for themselves and listen to an extract.
ليش هيك حامل اخوك؟
انت عصبني.
طيب وين مودياها؟
بدي اروح على عرشتنا.
وانت مش تعبانه وانت حاملاها هيك؟ تعبانه ولا لا؟
تعبانه وساعة بعملها او مش قادرة.
وين رايحه انت هالقيت؟
انا رايحة
في المنتزه البريج؟
اه.
طب تعال اخذك معايا.
Now, as I said, this video quickly went viral worldwide, racking up millions of views. We can see just in this post alone here on X, it has 8 million views there. I think I've got another example here that has just 1.4 million views as well, just on this alone. But of course, this video trickled down to several other different social media sites. It was huge on Instagram, TikTok, several articles written about it. So yes, it did gain a lot of traction online, Sharon.
And what exactly has the reaction been on those websites?
Well, Sharon, as I said, the video has been shared all around the world by users. But if we talk about specifically Palestinian networks, particularly on Telegram, for example, comparisons have been made comparing this video, this viral video in the Gaza Strip, with a well-known historic photo taken in 1945 in Nagasaki in Japan, titled "The Boy Standing by the Crematory," which depicts a young Japanese boy carrying his dead baby brother on his back. So that's the kind of comparisons that we are seeing on some Palestinian networks there. If we look at the other side, for example, many pro-Israel accounts have been denouncing the video, saying that it is staged, calling it Pallywood. Pallywood, of course, being the portmanteau of Palestine and Hollywood, that suggests that Palestinian suffering is fabricated. And we have often covered stories like this here on Truth or Fake and debunked them as well. But we can see this example here calls it child abuse in Pallywood. We have another user here that says a young child wouldn't possibly be able to carry another young child for that long on her back. There is another user who is a anti-Pallywood account, in fact, and this user posted a montage of reasons of why they believe that this video has to have been staged. They say that the young girl doesn't show signs of exhaustion, it doesn't show signs of heat exhaustion or sweatiness. She says that she speaks too confidently and without hesitation to a stranger. They also attest that the injured little girl had sand and dust visible there on her feet, suggesting that she doesn't have a problem with her foot and she would be able to walk. However, if we go back and check our viral video, at the end of the video, the little girl with the injured foot is able to, in fact, pose her leg on the ground when she gets out the car, which suggests that's when the sand was, that's when her foot got dusty. Elsewhere in the video, in the montage, should I say, the anti-Pallywood user also attests that possibly, sorry, I've lost my video there. Elsewhere in the Pallywood claim, they also suggest that the little girl had had the cast taken off, pictured afterwards without the cast. However, we have to be clear here that the foot circled in this accusation is not the foot that we see in our viral video. In fact, the foot that the Pallywood account claims is the injured one is the right foot, whereas in fact what we see bandaged here in our viral video is the left foot. So that definitely does weaken the claims that we're looking at, Sharon. But overall, those are the reactions.
And Vedika, you've been doing your own research into all of this. So what do we know about where the little girls are now?
Well, Sharon, what I can say is that those two little girls have been identified by Palestinian journalists on the ground as 6-year-old Qamar Sob. She's the older one. She's 6, and her younger sister that she was carrying on her back is her sister Samia. She's 5. They are 2 of 9 children in their family, and they're originally from the north of the Gaza Strip, having now been displaced to the centre. They've been in their camp for about 10 months, according to reports there, and their father is missing. And so when Samia, the younger sister's foot was broken, her older sister took it upon herself to take her to the hospital to get it bandaged, having not found anyone else to take her. And that's why she carried her on the back to get that bandage done. Since they have been pictured, since this video came out and they were pictured in the camp, there have been several new reports showing them in the displacement camp around other children and also with receiving supplies and being taken care of in the camp. But those are the most recent updates that we have of the two sisters there.
The events since October 7 have been absolutely overwhelming. And
we're joined by France 20.
So yeah, this things there to you talk about that I wanted to go over and speak on, and a lot of that was gonna be my retaliation against part of my retaliation against Ben Shapiro, but honestly, he's not even worth talking about. He basically was saying that because the student was asking how he could be in support of being a Jew and stuff, and how he could be in support of what's going on in Gaza, I guess from a moral standpoint. And Ben Shapiro basically was saying that he not only was in support, but he celebrated and lauded or applauded, was happy, gladly, overly happy about what was going on, and then went on to regurgitate a bunch of misinformation and lies about, or let me be I guess in his view, the way he interprets and views what's going on in Gaza from his perspective of his reality of Israel, because he clearly needs to keep, his reality of Israel as being the most moral, democracy in the Middle East, that does no wrong and is perfect in every way, and in anything that goes against that, he just clearly can't conceive or at all. I don't know. He's unable to hold two clear understandings of Israel, conflicting understandings of Israel in his head. More than two, more than one apparently. And it's just ridiculous. So yes, they've continued going on with their stuff in Gaza. They've continued to bomb Hezbollah as well. There's been several attacks still on Hezbollah. And of course, like we have tonight, a breaking news that they have attacked Iran. Did their retaliation against Iran for Iran's retaliation. The tit for tat thing. Let's hope that that's all it is. That it stops. That was a one and all hit, and that Iran just says okay and doesn't aggress any further. I know this has been a long video, but I wanted to talk it all through since I hadn't been able to really talk about it in about a week now. So it's really, honestly, it's just depressing at this point to talk about it, to think about it, and that it seems like nobody is doing anything about it. I shared a video earlier today. Where is that video? Right here. Israelism, the Wake of Youth, Young American Jews. There's a documentary here. It's a little over an hour and 20 minutes. I highly suggest you go check out. I highly suggest you go check this out. Also on Al Jazeera, they've done some incredible documentaries. But this documents through some Jewish Americans who, grew up Jewish, grew up with the whole idea, the concept of, what's taught about Israel, what's taught about Jewish history to them in that, Jewish Israeli Zionist like bubble, and they, did their birthright, which is where they're able to their birthright trip, which is where they're able to go to Israel for free to learn about Israel, to go through the whole thing. There are even military exercises and things where they do these little skits and stuff. I mean, it goes through the whole thing about being in the military and whatnot. There was one of them that actually did afterwards go and be in the military. He talks about doing that and what he saw and what he was a part of, and the shame that he felt in that afterwards, along with another girl who did her birthright as well, and then had these other things happen when she got back that made her start to question and want to learn more, and so she wound up going back to Israel, actually going into the West Bank that she had never been into, and seeing the conditions and all this kind of, like, there's the whole thing. It's a great documentary, and really shows, the other side. It shows both sides. It shows, how from the mind and thought of an Israeli or a Jewish person brought up in that, ideology of what is taught is Israel, what they want to believe, what they want to be, and it's oftentimes in that Zionist-like bubble, and then them being conflicted when they see opposing perception, or the other side conflicts with what they were told, and it causes them to completely re-examine all that they were taught and why they now are part of the Jewish coalition for Palestinian rights and against what Israel is doing right now. And now they are being attacked, as the self-hating Jews, all these different kinds of things. It's very great documentary, and I highly suggest you to check it out. So yeah. Again, I know this is a long video, but I wanted to get all that out. Thank you very much. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider subscribing, like, share, comment, all that stuff. Let me know. Check out my other channels and stuff as well. JM Drummer, JMDPLAY. In Discord, you got the donation here, JMD, and do the Patreon, $3 a month there. Anything you do is much welcome, but yeah, it's subscribing, liking, sharing, that kind of stuff helps probably the most. Thank you very much for your thing, and yeah, the next time in ClearTalk. Peace. I'm out.